Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. College Football Playoff Committee. Goodness gracious. So the College Football Playoff Committee. So listen, let me even backtrack, right? Because I get two things in life can be true. I think it's stupid that we do rankings every single week because all it does is it backs the committee into a corner where they're supposed to change something, but nothing changes. So then they don't change it, but they still have to explain why the rankings are this and that. And it backs themselves into a corner. Okay. But what I will also say is that this time of year, as big games keep happening and losses keep accruing, there is a shakeup throughout this college football playoff. And so coming out of last weekend, I think there was so much fascination. This was one of the more anticipated college football playoff rankings, in my opinion, because of a couple simple things. We had Alabama, who I think coming into last week, they weren't ranked number one, but I think you can absolutely argue had the best resume. A win over Georgia is probably the best win anywhere in college football. A win over Tennessee, a win over Missouri, a win over Vandy, okay? So they had a great resume coming in. How far would they fall after a second loss? Texas, we have all, including me, made the argument, is Texas the best one-loss team or best three-loss team in college football? And if they were to somehow beat A&M in 2 weeks, is that a team that should be in the mix? Well, I bring it up because the new college football playoff rankings are out. Not a lot of change at the top, but just for clarification, I'll go through the first 7 really quick, the first 8 really, because those kind of went as planned. Top 3 have not changed. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, 1, 2, 3. Georgia at 4 moves up, obviously, after the Alabama loss, after the great Georgia win against Texas. Texas Tech sitting at number 5, 10-1 overall, the great win over BYU. Number 6, the Ole Miss Rebels. We don't know who's going to be coaching them in the college football playoff, but they're at number 6 at 10-1. Oregon 9-1, which I think is kind of interesting. They don't have a lot of great wins. By the way, apparently the committee was crediting them for winning at Penn State, which means absolutely nothing because everybody does that now. So they're at number 7. 8 is Oklahoma. Okay. So why I'm stopping at 8, and Matt, you could keep the rankings on the ticker, is because after that is where it got interesting to me. The committee clearly has a Notre Dame problem. Notre Dame is 8-2. They have not lost since week 3. They lost their first 2 games. They had the early bye. So week 3, they lose to Texas A&M at home after losing to Miami. Well, Miami's a 2-loss team. What do you do with Miami, 2-loss team that has beaten Notre Dame? By the way, what do you do with Alabama that takes a second loss that has probably the worst loss of any true contender in Florida State, but also a bunch of great wins, including 3 wins now in the top 20 with Georgia, Vandy, and Tennessee, not to mention Missouri is now back in the top 25 as well. So you have the Notre Dame-Alabama problem, or Notre Dame-Miami problem. You have the Alabama issue. And then there was another team that I was very curious to see, the BYU Cougars, because BYU has done everything the committee has asked. Beat all the teams they're supposed to. Great win over Utah. Only lost to a top 5 Texas Tech team. And strength of record, which we'll get into in a minute, is supposed to be an important metric. They are really high in. Well, guess what? BYU, as a 1-loss power conference team, comes in at number 11 behind Alabama. And I just got to say, I understand the the Notre Dame versus Alabama debate. To me, it's not as interesting as why the heck is BYU behind Notre Dame. And I truly believe there is no team that is getting screwed harder by the College Football Playoff Committee than BYU. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first of all, as far as the Alabama stuff is concerned, I promise if you're a BYU fan, you're like, stop talking about Alabama. Matt, you can leave the logo up. It's fine. As far as Alabama is concerned, okay, why I'm not freaking out about Alabama. Alabama's path is ahead of them. They have to beat Auburn, and if they go to Auburn, they will go to the SEC championship game, and win or lose, they're in. Even at 10-3, The committee proved last year they are not, if you are good enough to make a power conference championship game and you're in position to make the playoff, you will not be punished if you lose. So for Alabama, it all comes down to that SEC, to the Auburn game. Beat Auburn on the road, you go to the SEC championship game, you're in. Now, if you win, you may be as high as the number 1 seed. If you lose, you might be as low as the 11 seed, but they're not going to leave out Alabama if they get in. So it comes down to, can you beat Auburn with an interim head coach at Jordan-Hare Stadium? It's that simple. This is why I am frustrated on behalf of BYU fans, and I would say on behalf of all Big 12 fans. It is because BYU has done everything you have asked. And unless there is absolute calamity in front of them, they have no path to the college football playoff other than winning the Big 12 championship game. And at that point, that probably knocks out Texas Tech, and BYU both don't get in, and the Big 12 is once again a one-bid league. And so this is where my frustration is. This isn't stand up for BYU. This isn't stand up for Big 12. This is stand up for what's right and what the committee has told us they wanted. Okay? So BYU, let's just compare them to Notre Dame. Let's leave Alabama out of it because Alabama, whatever. By the way, the committee has a much bigger issue if USC beats Oregon this week, because all of a sudden it gets really jumbled with the 2-loss situation. Maybe that's another conversation, maybe for the Thursday show. Okay. But here's the thing with BYU. Okay. So what does BYU have on their resume? So first of all, they're sitting at 9-1 right now. Okay. So first of all, so 9-1 BYU versus 8-2 Notre Dame. Let's just talk about the facts. Okay, let's take out Alabama. Let's take out Oregon, who, by the way, Oregon actually has no real resume to speak of. I think if they lose to USC, they might be on the outside looking in of this college football playoff conversation. But as far as Notre Dame and BYU, let's look at the facts. Okay, so Notre Dame and BYU, and I think actually Notre Dame is good. But I am going off of what the committee has told us that they want. First of all, I know win-loss record doesn't matter, but they are, BYU is 9-1, Notre Dame is 8-2. Again, I understand win-loss record doesn't matter, right? This is where it gets more complicated. One, BYU, their best win is better than Notre Dame's. Their best win is against Utah, which, as you can see in the new college football playoff rankings, is number 12. That is better than any win that Notre Dame has. Their best win right now against number 15 USC. Now USC plays Oregon. We'll continue that conversation if it happens, if USC pulls off the upset this weekend. But right now, BYU, more wins. Best win is better than Notre Dame's. How about the losses? Well, you can't sit here and say, well, BYU, they took a bad loss. They lost to Texas Tech, who is 5th in the college football playoff rankings. So don't tell me that it's all about, they took a bad loss. They have a good win and they have a great loss. Okay. Notre Dame has a okay win and 2 good losses as well. So nothing adds up. But this is the part that actually really frustrates me. Okay. This is the part that frustrates me. If you remember, coming into this year, the committee was adamant that they were going to use a new metric called strength of record. Okay. Why does that matter? Strength of record is an analytic that was basically put in. It was basically, I called it at the time, the Indiana rule, the Indiana corollary, the anti-Indiana metric. If you go back to last year, there was a lot of pushback about putting Indiana in at 11-1 overall. And the argument is it can't just be about wins and losses, but who you play. And so the argument against Indiana was they played nobody. Most of their wins were over the bottom half of the Big Ten. They didn't play the best teams in the Big Ten except for Ohio State, which they lost to. And they went out of their way to make their out-of-conference schedule as easy as possible. And so it was a situation where they're getting a benefit for not even trying to schedule out of conference and playing the bottom half of the league. And if you remember last year specifically, the conversation centered around Indiana with no great wins but no bad losses, or Alabama, which had a couple great wins, Georgia last year, South Carolina, which was 9-3 and a good win last year, but they also had some bad losses as well. Vandy was unranked by the end of the year, 6-6. Oklahoma was 6-6, etc. And so that's a backstory to say the SEC made this huge stink about strength of record has to matter. And it can't just be about wins and losses. And sometimes 9-3 is better than 11-1. And like, I can't even argue with that. I agree fundamentally with that. Here is the issue. You know where BYU ranks in strength of record right now? They currently rank in strength of record number 6. Here are the only teams ahead of them strength of record. Texas A&M, which any metric that says that Texas A&M strength of record is the best in the country is a stupid metric, but that's another conversation for another day. Texas A&M, Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Ole Miss. Those are the only teams ranked ahead of BYU in strength of record. You know who's not ranked ahead of BYU? Oregon. You know who's not ranked ahead of BYU? Alabama. Now, you could argue it's a stupid metric. Alabama should be higher, but Alabama is not ranked ahead of BYU. Oh, by the way, you know who's definitely not ranked ahead of BYU? Notre Dame, which comes in at number 12 in the same metric. And so I know I'm getting a little nerdy right now, but this is what drives me crazy, okay? If we are going to say that this metric or this matters or that matters, then that's fine. But we have to stick to it, okay? I'll give you a side example involving a person that we talk about a lot, right? We keep being told that it can't just be about wins and losses, but I will give Lane Kiffin credit. He is very vocal about why are we scheduling tough out of conference games, because teams are only getting punished for playing them. But basically, they're not getting punished. They're not getting rewarded for winning them, and they are getting punished for losing them. And so his argument is Texas A&M went on the road and beat Notre Dame, and they would be punished if they had lost that game, but they're not really being credited for winning it, because obviously it's a better win than anything, frankly, even Ohio State has. I know Ohio State beat Texas, but at Notre Dame is a better win than Texas at home. It's better than anything Indiana has. All right, we're going to get back to the video that you're watching in just a second, but before we do, let's be honest, being a college football fan in 2025, yeah, it'll age you fast. Your team stinks. You need a new head coach. Where's all the buyout money coming from? College football these days will leave you with a lot of wrinkles. But just because your team lets you down doesn't mean you can't keep that skin glowing. And I want to welcome a new partner to the Aaron Torres pod, Tiege Hanley, which makes uncomplicated skincare routines for men that actually work. So listen, even if your football team has you stressed, doesn't mean you can't still look good. I got the face wash right here. Tiege Hanley sent it to me. It works like a charm. I'm using it every day. Oh, by the way, we got the eye cream right here. Yeah, when you're looking at message boards all night long into the early morning hours, you're going to get some crow's feet. You need the eye cream. Tiege Hanley, love this about them. They use quality science-backed ingredients, and they ship everything you need right to your door each month. It's skincare made simple, no guesswork, no fancy nonsense. Even better, listen, we're approaching the holidays, and the bottom line is you're trying to find some gift ideas for you, for friends, for family. Well, guess what, fellas? This is the perfect gift to get you looking good into 2026. Maybe you got a new head coach. Maybe you'll be showing up for the press conference. You want to look good. Ladies, isn't this sort of the gift that's for him, but also for you as well? That's Tiege Hanley. Best part is, though, Tiege Hanley is taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod with a very special offer. You can get 40% off your first box plus a free $20 gift. All you got to do is click the link in the description or pin comment to grab the deal. Again, 40% off your first box plus a free $20 gift. All you got to do is click the link in the description or the pin comment to take advantage of that deal. Trust me, your skin or whoever you get Tiege Hanley for, great gift again for the fellas in your life. Everybody's going to thank you. Your team might have you stressed, but there's no reason that you have to look it. Thank you to Tiege Hanley. Take advantage of the offer. We appreciate their support of the Aaron Torres pod. And so Lane Kiffin's point is, don't tell us that scheduling tough out of conference games matter when we don't get rewarded and we only get punished. And so to me, that's the frustrating thing with this strength of record thing, is if you told us it mattered in the preseason, that's fine. But we are now here. Real rankings are coming out, and it has to matter now that the games matter, now that the games are being played. And so that's the part that pisses me off. And the bigger picture, this is what pisses me off as well, is that every year I hate to say it because I know the vast majority of fans in the chat are SEC fans. Every year, the SEC complains about whatever, about not getting enough teams in, and they want to change this, and they want to alter that, and they want to do this, and they want to do that. And then if it doesn't benefit them, then they're on to the next thing. So does strength of record matter or not? I'm sorry that I'm mad about this, but the whole conversation about the college football playoff drives me crazy because every year we change the rules. I'll give you a quick side story. This is so random. Years ago, I was at Mountain West basketball media days, okay? You want a blast from the past? There was a guy named Larry Eustace who was the head coach at Colorado State at the time, okay? Larry Eustace is long retired, famous, by the way. This is an unbelievable story. Side tangent of the century. Larry Eustace got fired in the early 2000s at Iowa State because he showed up at frat parties after the games. This was like a 45-year-old head coach showed up at frat parties after the games, okay? You can Google it. This was like right at the advent of the internet, and it was like, pictures are ending up on message boards of him at parties. Anyway, years later, he was at Colorado State. Let me get back on track. And I remember being at Mountain West Media Days, and the year before, Colorado State had been one of the first 2 or 3 teams left out of the NCAA tournament. And I remember him being like, we did everything the committee asked, and then the committee changed the metrics on us in real time to put somebody else in. And that's exactly what they're doing to BYU. They're saying that strength of record matters, who you beat matters, where you play matters. And they're doing all of that. And oh, by the way, beat a 7-3 Arizona team that should be ranked. Beat a 7, they play Cincinnati this weekend. And so I don't want to get too fired up because BYU still has work to do. But the issue for me is this. Even if they take care of business, I don't know that they're going to do enough to put themselves in position where if they don't win the Big 12, they get into the playoff. And I think that's a shame. And so ultimately, I don't really care who gets in and who doesn't. I just want everybody to play by the same rules. And so everybody's focused on Bama versus Notre Dame. How about Notre Dame versus BYU? How about Notre Dame versus Oregon, which I think is an interesting conversation as well that nobody wants to talk about. So it's an unbelievable deal. And the last thing I'll say is this. I think BYU fans have a right to be mad. Kalani Sitake's way too nice to make us think about it. And you know who else I'm actually a little bit disappointed in? Brett Yormark. Brett Yormark is the commissioner of the Big 12. Brett Yormark has done a great job of positioning the Big 12 as the definitive third best team in all of college sports. By the way, great pull by Matt. If you're a BYU fan just finding us, follow us on Twitter, Torres on BYU, okay? Torres on BYU on Twitter. I bring it up because Brett Yormark has done a great job positioning the Big 12 as the third best conference in college football, and he said in the preseason, we talked about it. I had producer Matt make me a reel about it when there was nothing to talk about in July. But Brett Yormark said, we're getting a second team in the college football playoff this year, mark my words. And I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said we expect to have 2 teams in the college football playoff. Well, it's time, Brett Yormark. You have 2 teams in position, so step up, be a commissioner, lead, and throw a fit. Why are you not out there leading this charge? It makes no sense to me. I think BYU fans have a right to be frustrated. I think Big 12 fans have a right to be frustrated. By the way, I think Texas Tech fans have a right to be frustrated too because the committee is basically painting them into a corner where if they don't win their season finale, they have a bye this week. If they don't win their season finale and if they don't win the Big 12, they can't get in either. And I think they're a pretty darn good team as well. So we'll see what happens. Plenty of time to figure this all out. BYU, by the way, if you want to argue with me, that's fine. BYU does still have to beat a Cincinnati team that was ranked last week. They play them this weekend. And then BYU closes. I don't even know off the top of my head. Let's see here. BYU closes at home with UCF. Scott Frost, baby. I think they take care of UCF at home. The big one is they got to win this weekend. If they don't win this weekend, by the way, even the Big 12 standings go a little bit hectic. They might not make the Big 12 championship game. So just bring it up. I think BYU fans have a right to be frustrated. I'm frustrated on behalf of them, but it is what it is.